Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Captain Logan Show. I am Captain Logan. I am flying solo tonight because, unfortunately, Danny Nixon was not able to make it. He's got something else going on tonight. It's some unforeseen thing that he didn't know about, I think, until the last couple days, last minute. So I am going to be doing the show by myself. It's going to be like the early days of the Captain Logan Show, where you will hear me doing all of the rambling for the next hour. So everybody be patient with me. I'm going to be doing my own moderating tonight. Wasn't able to get anybody else to help me out tonight. So I'm going to be grabbing your questions as we go along, and I will answer as many things as I can from as many different people as humanly possible. I wanted to mention a couple of stuff right out the gate. First of all, I am about to bring back Superhero Replay. Going to start reviewing superhero video games every now and again, and I've got a new co-host for that show, Aaron Hickman of the Genesis Gems. I've had him on a live show once with Nick, the two hosts of the Genesis Gems podcast. So it's going to be fun to kind of sink my teeth back into old video games again, talking about superhero stuff. Also going to be doing another superhero rewatch here in the next week or two. So look forward to a date on that. Not sure what the subject's going to be. I might go ahead and knock out Watchmen, although because that was voted on by Patreon. But I may want to try to grab a co-host for that, so I'm not sure yet. Kind of flying by the seat of my pants on that show. But we did a pilot for it a couple weeks ago with the pilot for Arrow. Went really super well, and that was a lot of fun. So somebody in the comments says, poor Cap is lonely. Nah, I'm good. I'm just, the show is kind of more fun for me and easier to do when I've got somebody else to bounce things off of. And feels a lot less self-indulgent when there's somebody else here, and it's not just me doing all the talking. So anyway, I've written down some of your questions. We'll start getting into those here in a little bit. As always, the super chat is open. If you want to make sure that your question gets read on air, and there's one right now, I will make sure and read those regardless of what they are. So whatever you post there with donation, I'll make sure and read. And thanks a bunch for your support. I sure appreciate it. Malik Myers, $2 super chat, says thoughts on the new epic Hellboy poster. Yes, it does look epic. That's about all I can say about it. It's super accurate to the comics. It's absolutely fantastic looking. Really good prosthetics. It's really the image that they need, I think, to sell that and get people on board with the reboot. It'll be really interesting to see how that performs and if it can do bigger guns than the previous Hellboy franchise did, and I expect it to be a very different thing. It's interesting that, the look of it, he doesn't look all that far away from what was done in the first place, but it's a little sleeker. It's a little bit more streamlined. I'm not real into the tagline, the AF thing. Was it Legendary AF? I don't love that. I prefer something a little bit classier. I don't know. But that kind of tells you what the target audience might be. So like that probably sounds a little bit prudish coming from me, but I don't love that. Is that supposed to be a rated R thing? Do we know yet? Because I'm immediately kind of more okay with that if it is an R-rated thing, and it probably ought to be. It looks like it will be, but I guess metal is kind of the best way I could describe that. Malik also asks, what are my thoughts on the new Spider-Verse trailer? I actually just watched that before the show because I'd forgotten that dropped yesterday. It immediately confirms the opposite of a thing I had been thinking, which was that perhaps it was just one other universe with a bunch of spider people in it, and that is clearly not the case. It is adapting Spider-Verse a little bit more straight than I thought they were. I thought they were going to streamline that some, but it looks like it is a bunch of different universes, and we're getting to see all these different looks of different Spider-Man universes. Some people aren't real keen on the animation style. I think it looks gorgeous. In the dropped frame rate and stuff, for whatever reason, I'm really excited about it. I think just because it's a really unique take. As I've said before, it looks like, and the more I'm seeing of it, it looks like the closest thing to translating a comic book directly to a movie that I've seen, and I think that's really cool. It very much feels like you're taking the 4-color world and putting it on the big screen. I like I said, the different looks of the different universes. I like that Spider-Gwen's universe just looks like that art style and that color palette. I'm jazzed about that. That's really cool. If you gotta do a Spider-Verse, this looks like the way to do it. I think it has every potential to be much better than the comic series that spawned it, especially because it's liable to be a lot more character-driven than that was, since it's got a direct point of view protagonist at the center of it with Miles. I agree with everybody in the comments that was talking about this earlier, saying that it's kind of unfortunate that we're not doing just a Miles character vehicle before we get to Spider-Verse. This feels like your second or third movie, maybe. It really does look like a sequel to something that never got made. I absolutely agree with that. But if you gotta do it, this looks like the way to go. I am worried that Sony is maybe doing that thing that they tend to do with their movies, with their advertising, where they're showing us a little bit too much, and or that they have the potential to show us too much. This should be the last trailer. I hope they don't do too many TV spots with too many other and I know TV spots often bring in little snippets of things that aren't in the trailers, but I hope we don't see too much of this movie. It would have been nice for Spider-Ham to be a reveal and for your general audience to not know that was coming. I really liked that second trailer where we just... And to be fair, the advertising for this is way better than the Spider-Man movies, than the Amazing Spider-Man movies were advertised, and then Venom, certainly. That feels like Spider-Man 2, or Amazing Spider-Man 2, to me, all over again, to some degree. I mean, Venom hasn't had a 4.5-minute trailer yet, but the advertising for that really feels like that to me. But you got the end of that second Spider-Verse trailer where we just revealed Spider-Gwen, and it was like, oh cool, look, this character that was really popular in the comics for a while that you may or may not have, you almost certainly have seen, but you're finally gonna get to look at. You know what? I don't have anybody else on the other side right now. I don't know why I'm even wearing headphones. There's no reason for headphones. Anyway, but it would have been cool if that was all we got. But yeah, I remain excited about it. After that second trailer, I've been very sold on that. I think it has every potential to be awesome. What else? Thomas Headshill, $5 super chat. Thanks, buddy. What are your thoughts on the real Dark Phoenix trailer? Because Eric and I looked at a Dark Phoenix trailer from a few months ago that was fan-made, that was not the actual Dark Phoenix trailer. And again, in my defense, I was looking at it on my phone, and I wasn't looking at it that closely, and it just looked really boring. And I was like, oh, look, this movie looks boring. And I was like, Cap, that's not even a real trailer. And that was somewhat embarrassing. But we can be sure that the trailer that just dropped is the real Dark Phoenix trailer. Have you seen also NBC's Manifest? I think you'd like it. I've not heard of that. I'll have to look into that. I am writing it down at this very moment. NBC Manifest. Evolution is the best on YouTube. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate that. The Dark Phoenix trailer is a bit of a mixed bag for me. The thing, or I say mixed bag, I'm going to be surprised if that movie is great. I hope it's better than Apocalypse. I'm not holding out hope for greatness with that. More and more, it's looking like just not the premise they should have gone with. I'll tell you what I'm jazzed about before I get into what I really don't like about what we're seeing at the moment. And that is, because as I always say, trailers are there to get you to go, not to tell you what's actually in it. I mean, it's weird that this is what they would do to try to get people to go see it, but it may not be exactly what it looks like. I guess we'll find out. But with just the, factual plot things that they've put in the trailer so far that within context can't really change that much, I'm not real stoked about it. But anyway, the thing that I am excited about is just what McAvoy looks like as Professor X. He finally looks like kind of a middle-aged Professor Xavier. Certainly not as old as he should look, like 10 years or even 5 or 6 years before, assuming that the not-too-distant future is the same in X-Men as 2000 or 2001. But I digress. He looks like he's maybe in his 40s now, so that's good. But he's certainly, if that were going to line up, should look older. But then we've thrown continuity out the window now, so who really cares? But I don't know. He's something about the way they've done him up now. I don't know if it's his performance or makeup or both, but he's really got that like comic book, like furrowed like mysterious eyebrow thing going on, and I'm excited about that. I always love. I mean, McAvoy's Xavier is probably my favorite character in the X-Men movies now. McAvoy's version specifically. Obviously, I love Patrick Stewart, but they just never let him do enough until we got to Logan. But anyway, the problem with it is it looks like a remake of X3, straight up almost. Not straight up. I mean, like, I'm sure folks will argue with me on that. Obviously, it's not. It doesn't look like Xavier, like pushed down an alternate persona that Jean Grey had. It doesn't look like he made that recede into her mind, but he kept things from her, and it seems like he did mess with her mind in some way, and that the Phoenix is once again kind of a manifestation of all of that. Okay, I'm really kind of surprised that we're doing that again. I like the somber atmosphere of it. I like that it feels kind of personal again, and that it doesn't look like. It's interesting that the Dark Phoenix movie doesn't, at least with what we've seen so far, look like an end of the world thing. It probably will be, but it looks like that's not what's in the forefront, or at least the way they're advertising it. So I guess I appreciate that, but yeah, I'm not, and we'll talk about this in the omnibus in a couple weeks, but I'm not super impressed with it. We'll see what happens with it. Let me go ahead and answer a couple of pre-written questions, and then we'll get back to the super chats. Once again, thank you guys for all of your support. Blue Dragon 5, what would you pitch for the third Telltale Batman that never was? Ew, that's a good question. I don't know, because the thing that Eric and I were really surprised by, and spoilers for the second Telltale Batman game, Enemy Within, the thing we were really surprised is that that game lets you choose between two completely different paths, where when you start the next game, where you would start would have to be different based on where you left off, unless all roads just conveniently led to the same place in between games, right? So you can end either continuing to be Batman or not being Batman. How do you start another game like that? My go-to for these things is always No Man's Land. I think a Telltale, and I know that Gotham is apparently doing that. No Man's Land would be a really fun story to play through like that, and try to do a character piece for Batman, and where you have to decide. Maybe you even decide like if you're gonna stay in the city or leave for a while or whatever. Although those would be, again, two giantly different paths. But I don't know what else could you do? I mean, I guess I'm just thinking of stories you could adapt, but they're not really doing that. So I guess then the next place to go would be just characters that they haven't. And I mean, we're not getting this now, obviously, but unless another company were to pick it up, like I talked about last week, I think that could happen. But I don't know how popular those were really. I don't know how well they sold. But I guess you'd then have to look at other characters that they didn't reinvent. Like, what would their Hugo Strange look like? They probably would continue to avoid that just because that character was huge in Arkham Knight, Arkham City. But I don't know, other characters like. Could they do something really cool with Poison Ivy? Would that maybe finally be the place to do like a really cool, three-dimensional layered Poison Ivy? I don't know. I don't immediately have great suggestions for that. What else? Grady Childs, Cap, what do you think of my idea of, instead of Superman, Michael B. Jordan could play John Henry Irons, aka Steel? I've seen a few people suggest that. I'm not into that idea. I mean, I would love to see Steel, and I would love to see, a Steel spin-off movie. Like, I would want him to be in a Superman thing first and then spin him off. If that were the casting, I wouldn't cry about it. He's a wonderful actor. I'm sure he could pull it off. So I want to say that's not my first choice, but then people are immediately going to say, what is your first choice? And I'm not great at fan casting, and immediately things don't come to my mind. But my gut reaction to that is he's not the right body type for it. Like, I mean, I think a lot of people immediately went to that because it was like, well, there is this great African-American character that's related to Superman. He doesn't have to play Superman. I still think if you're okay with the ethnicity switch, And that's for everybody to decide on their own whether or not they think it's really important that Superman maintains his ethnicity. I know different people feel differently about that. That is one of those characters I think you can kind of get away with changing that. As long as after that we're not stuck to it. As long as we don't say, well, once he's been another ethnicity, he's never allowed to go back now, because I think that's silly. But that is a character that I think you can kind of get away with that with. And I get because I saw people arguing about this last week, and I get the iconic argument where it's like, yeah, but like he's kind of the first superhero, or at least the first like major superhero, and he's got this iconic look, and everybody's used to it, and it's weird to switch that. But I don't. But personally, like I could get on board with that. But as far as the actual question goes, because like just for a lot of folks that I'm seeing saying that, and not you specifically necessarily, Grady Childs, but I just wanted to mention that because a lot of people seem to be going to that because they're like really resisting the idea of Michael B. Jordan playing Superman, and so they're looking for something else for him to do in DC Universe. But I see John Henry Irons as a little bit older and as a much beefier guy. Like, obviously Michael B. Jordan had to get really ripped to be Creed and Killmonger and other characters he's played. But I still don't think he has quite the right body type for that. I don't see, John Henry, the steel-driving man in Michael B. Jordan. But also, my mind could be changed because I thought Tom Hardy was a bizarre choice for Bane. He's not a big guy, and then he's in Dark Knight Rises, and he's enormous. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess that did work. Let's see what other super chats are in here, shall we, folks? Give me just a second. I got to scroll up a little bit. Scrolling up a little bit. John Early, $5 super chat. I just wanted to hear your opinion on Alfred Hitchcock as a filmmaker. I really like him as a director. My favorite Hitchcock films are Psycho and Rope. I have seen a smattering of Hitchcock movies. I don't have like great insights in the man for anything that hasn't already been said about Hitchcock before. Obviously, he was a pioneer. Obviously, he was wonderfully artistic, wonderfully minimalistic. Had a great sense of atmosphere and of terror, and he was really good at making you scared by things that he didn't show you versus things that were actually on the screen. Wonderful visual storyteller. He's the behind the scenes stuff with him is really interesting because of the way he treated actors and stuff. And he seemed to kind of treat actors like props as much as the props themselves. And obviously, were I directing, I wouldn't do it that way. But it's interesting the performances that he was able to get out of people. Yeah, my favorite Hitchcock movie is probably Psycho. I mean, that's easy. Rope I've seen, Vertigo I've seen. What else? Man, I feel like there's at least one other Hitchcock movie that I really liked when I saw it years ago that I would put right up with Psycho, but it's just been a long time since I've really delved into those. Grady Childs, another $5 super chat. Okay, I actually just already answered that. What are your thoughts on the Dark Phoenix trailer? Do you think at this point Fox might as well just dump it on Netflix with recent delay? I do. I don't know. Yeah, people keep talking about that. We had those rumors for a while. I'm glad there was more to this question because otherwise you would have kind of thrown away a super chat and I would have felt bad about it. Yeah. There were those rumors for a while that they weren't going to put it out, and that maybe down the road we would get just a DVD or Blu-ray release or something. And then obviously those were just rumors. It's weird how much stuff's getting pushed back right now and by different companies. And it's like, I don't want to be all conspiratorial or whatever, but it's weird to think that that's all coincidence. I wonder if the Disney buyout doesn't have something to do with all of the pushback with some of these. I mean, obviously, especially Fox, but I'm just wondering, like, what happened. Like, Hellboy is also getting pushed back. Like, I'm just wondering what exactly is causing all that. It might be coincidence. They might all be separate issues, and but we just keep hearing about things getting pushed back. It's really interesting. But anyway, no, I think that will still come out to the theater. I think it's possible that if it looks like the interest in that is kind of lukewarm, that they won't do a whole lot in the way of advertising for it, and that they'll hope that it kind of works as a sleeper drop like First Class kind of did. First Class wasn't exactly a sleeper drop. I mean, obviously we knew about it, but it wasn't constantly in our faces or anything. And Apocalypse was. So, you know, even if the advertising of that isn't in our faces constantly, it might not even be because people don't seem interested. It might just be because that was kind of a bad strategy last time, and that movie could not have done as well as they were hoping it would. But anyway, yeah, I don't think it'll just go to Netflix. David Crabtree, $5 super chat. Did you go see Transformers? My theater was surprisingly packed with eruptions of cheering and applause throughout. Such a fun movie-going experience. Yeah, so he's referring to the 1986 Transformers, the movie, the animated film, the classic epic Transformers movie. Yes, Eric and I went and saw that. And actually, David, we I think talked about this in After Dark, which we've not posted yet, but I wanted to thank you for mentioning it last week, because we knew about it because of you in the first place, and then we'd forgotten about it, and when you brought it up on the Captain Logan show last week, luckily the next day was the Thursday that came out, I was like, oh crap, we completely forgot to go, and we were going to go see House with a Clock in Its Walls that night. We've still not been to that yet, and we ended up going to Transformers instead. Our theater was not packed. It had maybe 25, 30 people in it, and it was it was a fun group to watch it with. It was obviously a lot of people that knew it really well. Not a lot of like people yelling out lines and things, which is nice, I guess. Although that can be kind of fun too, if that's the kind of thing that you were that you went for, like if that, you know, like a Rocky Horror kind of thing, like I could see that if everybody went there and like that's what we all decided to do together. But that didn't happen in our theater. But if it did, I would have yelled out such lines as I've got better things to do tonight than die. No, it was wonderful to see that on the big screen. And I mean, the first time I saw it, with obviously the detail in animation and especially lighting effects and stuff, I kept thinking, man, I wish I was watching this on a larger screen. And I was watching it on a projector screen, which looks great, but it doesn't compare to seeing it on the big screen. And that's a movie I never thought I'd get to see like that. So that was definitely really exciting. And every time I see that movie, I pick up more stuff. I kind of wish that, and I'm like, I'm not a Transformers guy. I don't know that world real well. And now like the thing I know is that movie because I've seen it like 4 or 5 times now. And the first time I saw it, I had no idea what was going on. And every time I see it more and more, I'm realizing just how simple the story really is. And it's actually not that hard to keep track of things, except if you don't know any of those characters at all. And if you don't realize that characters on screen are actually dying, and that it's and that there are greater stakes than it looks like there are, because I apparently have this thing with Transformers. We talked about this when we reviewed Last Stand of the Wreckers last week, where I cannot tell when Transformers are dying in panels or in animation. Apparently, they're robots, and it just doesn't seem that traumatic to me because they're machines. I guess I'm like a robot racist, where I'm like, oh no, he's okay. He'll get up. And it's like, no, he clearly is dead, Cab. And Eric keeps having to point these things out to me. And he got really snarky in the movie theater, where characters at the beginning of that movie were dying on screen, and he goes, "No, Cap, that guy's dead." And I'm like, "Shut up, Eric. I know that guy's dead." It was absolutely wonderful. I'm really glad we went. So, David, thanks for mentioning that to us. We sure appreciated it. And lots more super chats. Let me get to another one. Sorry, I've got to scroll up a little bit as things are moving here. Super Nerd, $2 super chat. President Logan. Thanks. Favorite non-superhero films. Yeah, of course, I'm a big science fiction fan. So one of my favorite movies of all time is Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. I'm going to bring up stuff that I've talked about before. Favorites are always difficult to make interesting when you've talked about them before and when you've been, on YouTube for as long as I have been, because my strategy with question answering is usually to try to make things as fresh as I can and go to things I haven't really talked about before. But your favorites are your favorites. So to this time have, I mean, and that can change, of course, but to just, go out of your way to try to say something you haven't said before is kind of disingenuous and stupid. You really can't do it. So anyway, I'm a big fan of Wrath of Khan. I still love The Matrix. More and more, I'm discovering flaws in that movie, but I still love that movie. One of my favorite movies growing up was Field of Dreams, which I still go back to frequently. more and more I find myself having issues with the ending of that movie, but it does not destroy it for me at all. Other movies that I love, man, I don't know. I'm like, I get in the superhero headspace, and Dark City is a movie that I discovered doing a rewind on it that somebody requested years ago, and I absolutely adore that film at this point. The Day the Earth Stood Still is probably tied for my favorite science fiction film of all time with Planet of the Apes, which I also was way late to the party on, and is one of the greatest films ever made. Also, the 1960 Time Machine is a brilliant science fiction film that I was really late to the party on. Terminator 2, I love a lot. So yeah, those are a few. Now I'm just going to science fiction. I mean, obviously, there's lots of other genres. My favorite animated Disney film remains Beauty and the Beast, and I thought the live action remake was quite good and added and added a lot of great things to that. I think the definitive version of that movie has not been made now. I don't really need to see it again, but to see that happen again. But if you could somehow cut together some story points from the new film into the animated film, you'd have the perfect Beauty and the Beast movie. I also have discovered suddenly in the last couple of years a newfound appreciation for Mary Poppins, which is a thing that didn't really resonate with me growing up, that suddenly started to when I watched it again a while back. Media League, $10 super chat. Thank you so much. Would you consider having other content creators on for spoiler casts or discussions? I've been watching for years, would love to discuss DC among other topics. Yeah, so we've been kind of, and I occasionally get this question from people where folks are like, how do I get on Geekvolution? It's tough because I don't have a lot of time to watch a lot of extra stuff, and like I'm not I don't have any job openings as it were, right? Like I don't really have time, or I'm not really planning anyway to like sit down and like conduct interviews or whatever, which would be how you'd have to do that. Like I can't really just bring in a person that I don't know and that I don't know if I'll have a rapport with and how exactly we'll line up. And of course, that's nothing against anybody. You just have to make sure that personalities make sense to put on a thing. And the way I've generally tended to meet people is either kind of by accident or people that I mean, yeah, mostly by accident, where I will happen to watch a video and I really like a person, or somebody will be recommended to me, and I might check them out, and then I'll ask them if they want to do a co-op, or it'll be somebody that I meet through Patreon. Not to make this a commercial for Patreon. Like if you go on, if you become a patron, you might get on the channel. But it's just, we do a monthly live chat, and I've gotten to know some people that way, and folks like DJ and Danny Nixon, I found that way, and those guys I've had on the channel before. You just become friends with people, and you figure out rapports that work. So like, send me a video. I will try to, I don't like to promise anything. I will try to take a look at it and see if you're a good fit. And then if there's a video that makes sense to have you on, I'll certainly consider it. I mean, I'm not a prude about this. It's not about subscriber count. It's not about, it's not about if you have much of an audience yourself. I bring folks in all the time that don't even do this regularly, that are, again, just a good fit and have great, on-camera personalities, and insights and things. But we haven't been doing spoiler casts and things like that as much lately for a number of reasons. One of them is I am so busy with things in my personal life and taking care of a new baby and all of that, that I have to, like I get in solo stuff as much as I can, things that I can't do on the omnibus. And then beyond that, Eric and I shoot most stuff all at once. And, again, for the omnibus. So occasionally we'll try to get in somebody for that, but it can be difficult to line schedules up. And we don't do the live spoiler cast anymore just because Eric's time is more limited than it used to be. And so he's not able to just on a dime do a spoiler cast like that. He's working, he's got a girlfriend, you know, all kinds of things. So anyway, that was long-winded, but yeah, send me a sample and I will consider it, but there's not a lot of places for folks at the moment, but I'll occasionally do guest things with people, and like I said, I am going to start doing Superhero Replay with another new co-host, but that's a thing that we've been talking about doing for a long time, and a show that I just really want to do, and I found the right guy for it. So anyway, Super Nerd, $2 Super Chat, are you still pursuing a creative writing career? Yeah, I mean, career is a loaded term. Like all of my writing endeavors combined together, I consider my career. So I think of myself as a writer now before I can think of myself as a fiction writer. I do a couple of different kinds of writing. So yes, I'm a novelist, but I'm also a reviewer. I'm also a critical analysis guy. I write story analysis, and so that has in the last 9 years really taken over. And so I'm still writing stories, and I'm still I wrote a novel last year that I'm still not finished because I'm just busy with other things. That I'm still not finished revising, that I'm hoping to put out at Christmas. And I'm going to be, when I write books, putting them out independently, mostly because I don't want to work for anyone else. I shopped it around a little bit to see if there was any interest with publishers, and everybody said it was great, but it was just too weird, and that it was going to be too risky. It sounded very much like folks, in publishing houses liked it and might have. And might have gone with it if it fit the kinds of things they were putting out right now. But that's kind of the state of the publishing world right now, is everybody's kind of afraid to pull a trigger on things. And I was doing that reluctantly anyway. Like if somebody really, grabbed onto it and wanted to publish it, I was game to go that way, but I'm also not super disappointed about it. I do like working for myself, and I like seeing just how far I can take things with word of mouth and that kind of thing. So we are starting a publishing arm of the channel at the end of this year, and my goal is to put out a book a year on my own. I may not manage that with other things I'm doing, but that's the goal, and then I'm going to publish things from other folks too. So I'll be taking submissions in the not too distant future. If anybody has a book they're working on that you might be interested in seeing, if I might want to publish it. Let's look at some other pre-written questions before we go back to Super Chats. We've got about 25 minutes left on the show. I want to thank everybody for popping in and watching this live. If you're doing that, thanks a bunch for watching after the fact. If you're doing that, quick plug, real quick for Patreon. We are on our way to, so we've crossed the $700 goal last week, and then we hit the first of the month, and you always lose a few people at the first of the month, so we're back below 7 again. I'm expecting us to get back above that again soon. And so the goal for 700 was what movie was that? I can't even. All of a sudden, I can't remember. The goal. I'm gonna have to look. I honestly can't remember. The goal to get us at 750 was chosen by Eric, and that will, for the rewind queue, add Green Lantern Emerald Knights, which is an animated movie that I have never seen before. And so I don't know how much interest there's going to be in that, but that's the thing that he thought of. And so that's what I put on there. I'm actually good. Oh, I know what it was. It was a re-review of the 1990 Ninja Turtles movie, which I really need to do. So anyway, the next rewind is just $2 a month. If you're interested in becoming a patron, all kinds of cool perks there. You can chat with me monthly. You can get 3-day now early episodes of Superhero Rewind, and twice a month Eric and I do Geek Solution After Dark, which is our uncensored talk show, and that comes out brand new episode here in the next couple of days. So that's Patreon, and let's answer some more questions. Madman, when you create a game that's based on an established property, is it better to sacrifice potentially interesting gameplay and customization, or to strictly adhere to the canon? That's interesting. I don't think you want to sacrifice interesting gameplay, because I think that's the primary thing that people are there for. You know, like you can. Video games as a storytelling medium is really interesting because they're kind of trying to accomplish two things simultaneously. So I don't think it's the same thing as movies, where the main goal is telling a story and atmosphere and visuals and great cinematography, et cetera, is all kind of secondary and like important, because it all creates that experience and makes the story great. But like there's other things, if you're not loving the story in a movie, that you can kind of latch on to, even if the story isn't great. But when you've got, but with a video game, the thing to latch onto when the story isn't great is good gameplay. And going the other direction, if the story kind of sucks but the game is amazing, people are not going to care as much as when that happens in a movie, right? Like even Arkham Knight, that was not a completely failed game, just because a lot of people thought that the story was ultimately kind of lame and didn't make a lot of sense at the end of the day. Because, you know, with the exception for a lot of people, and I've talked about this before, of the Batmobile sections, it's still a really fun game to play. And so you kind of have to ignore that experience isn't great as a storytelling a vehicle, but it's a but it is a good video game. And so yeah, I don't think you can sacrifice gameplay. I think gameplay is paramount. And you know, in a perfect world, if the point of it is to also tell a great story, then you want both of those things to work in tandem. But it's a really odd medium, and I can't think of anything else like it, where it actually has two goals that are almost as important as the other. I think for most video game fans, and I might be wrong about this for some people, but I think for most people, the game mechanics are still going to trump story, even if just ever so slightly. But and then, you know, adhering to canon, like, are we talking about, you know, adapting from something else that has its own canon, or dealing with a canon that's already there? I guess I'm not even sure I understand the second part of that question. But anyway, I'll go ahead and move on. Jeffrey Patron, what do you think is the best use, in your opinion, of based on a true story? On a separate note, A Beautiful Mind was filmed partly at my college, I just learned. Oh, interesting. Wow. I wish I could go there and see what areas were filmed there, because that college, that campus there has kind of a distinct look, and I would maybe recognize some things. That's really cool. I guess I don't know what college you go to, Jeffrey. You'll have to tell me about that. But anyway, the best use of based on a true story, do you mean... And send me a message and elaborate on this. When you say the best use, do you mean the best example, like the best movie I've seen that is based on a true story, or just how that phrase could be used? I think Jeffrey's asking me this question because he sent me he sent me a trailer today for a new movie coming out that I didn't even realize was happening, I think next year, called Rocket Man, which is about the life of Elton John, and I'm excited about that. I think there's absolutely a story there, but the guy playing him, I gotta look that up. Even I haven't done that. I'm not sure who that is, but the guy playing him looks pretty good. But when you get to the end of that trailer, it's weird because it says based on a true fantasy. I don't even know what that means. Like, I haven't even allowed my mind to wander too much about that and try to analyze that. I don't even know what that means. I think we get too cutesy about that sometimes, where we're so self-aware about the true story thing, where people have gotten to where they roll their eyes at it like it's a cliche, like a biopic is based on a true story and is trying to simultaneously tell you that it's going to be an educational experience and it's what happened, at the same time as saying that, well, if I just say it's based on a true story, then I don't have to be too close to what really happened. And as I've always said, if it's a really great movie, if it's a really great story, I don't care really how accurate it is, unless it is presenting itself as exactly how something happened, which is absolutely impossible to create because they're like no one's life has cameras on it 100% of the time. So you have to take liberties with every biopic, no matter what it is you're doing. But anyway, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not. Oh, it's the guy from Kingsman. Okay. I'm just looking here to see if he has sent me. Okay, so I think I'm right. I think he's talking about the best instance of it. Good question. And the thing is, I hesitate because whatever I say, if it's not, if like I don't know enough about the background, it might not be that true to what really happened. And again, I'm not as interested in that as I am a great story. And I'm not. This is not my answer by any means. But the thing I've always the example I always go to is Saving Mr. Banks, because that's almost like exploitative about the what is that, P.L. Travers, and about how much she despised Mary Poppins, the movie, and she's, spoiler alert, but at the end of that movie, like tears of joy with the adaptation, and in real life she cried because she was angry. But I loved that movie. I loved that as a fiction, and so it's kind of tough. And obviously this isn't perfectly accurate either, and nothing is. But of the things I've seen, I'm probably gonna go with The Founder still. Ray is up there also, but I think those would be my answers. Andrew Follett, Cap, how are you feeling about Venom as it approaches, and has Into the Spider-Verse interested you at all? I talked about Into the Spider-Verse earlier. I am very interested in that. I wish that was what they were doing for their shared universe, by the way. Not necessarily starting with Spider-Verse. Wouldn't it be cool if you built to that, if you're gonna do it, right? If you like if they had enough confidence in their animated movie that they could do a Spider-Man shared universe that would actually have Spider-Man in it, because they don't have to worry about Marvel with that. They're doing that in animation. Wouldn't it be cool if they did a couple 3 movies that were different characters, maybe even do an animated Venom movie? I think that could be awesome. And then build the Spider-Verse and do that instead of more kind of weird trying to appease everybody, not really looking at all the lessons we've learned from the last couple of decades of superhero movies. Things like what Venom looks like. Of course, I've not seen it yet. We're going tomorrow night. But everything I'm hearing about that, and I try to stay away from early reviews as much as I can, but people have sent me things, and I've heard a little bit. And everybody is calling it the way it looked with all the advertising, which is it looks like it should have come out in the mid-2000s, and it looks like we didn't learn nothing. And so, that's unfortunate. So yeah, my expectations are really on the floor with that. I'm expecting it to be a really awkward experience, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. The thing is, and I feel awkward about it because I don't want to deal with DCEU a second time, and I'm afraid that's what's going to happen. I'm afraid that this movie is going to do well enough for them to continue. And indeed, they're already starting on their next project, I think, even before they know what the returns are with this. And it's going to be like BVS and Justice League all over again, is my fear, where even if everybody pans this movie, we're still stuck with more of them. And yeah, your average moviegoer can just choose not to go. But this is what I do. So like I will see them and I will talk about them, and I don't want to live in another mediocre shared universe when there's no excuse for it. All they have to do is make stuff in MCU with and keep extending their contract with the folks at the MCU that seem to more or less know what they're doing, and do your Venom movie with some of those folks, and make it clear that it's definitely in that world, and don't be so obsessed with your own independence as a studio, especially when you've been talking about maybe not even being a studio anymore. That they kicked around like getting rid of the movie arm of Sony. I don't know what they're doing. I don't understand it. I hope I am pleasantly surprised by that movie, but my expectations are in the floor right now. Blue Dragon 5 says Sony is allergic to logic. William Purcell says Sony is being petty because their Spidey films failed. That's exactly what it looks like. Yeah, I completely agree with that. So yeah, let me go back up to Super Chats because there are a few more. Once again, you guys are awesome. I sure appreciate it. I think I have missed some things. John Early, $2 Super Chat. Thoughts on the Godfather trilogy, Captain Logan? I still haven't watched any of those. I know that John or somebody else requested that Godfather at one point as, I think, a commentary when I was taking commentary requests on Patreon, and I'm not gotten to that. I still need to do that. So thanks for reminding me, but I don't have any thoughts on that right now because as much of a classic as that is, major film canon thing, I've just never gotten around to watching it. I have never claimed to be a film buff. I just am learning as much as I can as I go along. I know I review a lot more movies now, especially off the cuff, than I used to, and a lot of that is because with the Patreon requests, that's mostly what people are interested in. So people ask for things all the time that I don't feel remotely qualified to talk about, but I'm learning a lot, and I really appreciate you guys throwing those things my way. Mercer Create, $2 Super Chat, favorite episode and character on the Orville. Certainly, hands down, the best episode of that is Majority Rule. I think it's one of the best episodes of television in 10 years. The social commentary on that is absolutely brilliant, and I've watched it probably 3 or 4 times. If the Orville was a canonical Star Trek show, I would put it in my top 20 episodes of Star Trek. Of all of it. Favorite character in that show is difficult. I like Alara a lot. I think that's her name. I always mess that up. The captain has grown on me as time has gone on. It's been a while since I've watched this show, Mercer, right? But beyond that, yeah, I mean, like, I like that entire cast. And I have this sometimes with Star Trek too, where it's like, I don't know if I can put one character above everybody else. Like, there's characters that I like slightly less than other characters. You know, the robot in that is really interesting. But I didn't come to get really interested in him until the last 2 or 3 episodes. Yeah, it's probably, and it sucks because she's not gonna be in every episode next season, but I think it's still her. What else, guys? We got about 10 minutes left on the clock. Let's find some more super chats. David Crabtree, $5 super chat. Mary Poppins Returns, Spider-Verse, Bumblebee, Aquaman opening all within a 7-day span in December. I would have figured 1 or 2 movies would have moved. Yeah, good point. Wow, it will be really interesting. Wow, to see which of those goes to the top, and if any of them get really kind of blindsided and buried by others. Of those 4, I think Aquaman could be a little bit in trouble. I don't think that's going to be Wonder Woman all over again. And that's to say nothing about the quality of the trailer. I just don't know how much interest there really is in that movie from the general public, as inundated as we are with superhero movies, and as much as Justice League was hated, right? Like, people aren't going to be rushing to see a movie based on characters that were introduced in that movie unless they fell in love with that character despite the movie. I didn't hear a lot of that. You know, I didn't hear as much of like, okay, this movie was bad, but this guy was great, like I did with Ben Affleck in BVS. I didn't hear a lot of hatred of Aquaman, but it seemed like a lot of indifference. I think that movie would do okay on a weekend that where it was opening against nothing else. But if it's got to contend with some of those movies, I don't know. Spider-Verse will be interesting. Sometimes, very often, like animated movies that aren't aimed directly at children, that are kind of, you know, more adult animated things, not like super mature, but just, you know, animated, but for the same audiences that a lot of these other things are for, don't end up doing super well in the theater. I'm not expecting big guns for that. And I guess that makes me sound a little bit hypocritical because earlier I said I wish that Sony would take a chance on the animated thing and just do their shared universe that way. I don't know how well that would work, even if they were great as far as, patrons showing up to the theater and giving it money. But that's what I wish they'd do. Like I said, I don't know if it would work. So that's kind of in a perfect world, I guess. But I don't think Spider-Verse will tank. I just don't know ultimately how well it will do. I mean, like even the Lego Batman movie, I don't think did anything like the guns that Warner Brothers expected it to. Mary Poppins Returns, I have no idea how well that will do, but it's got a really good advertising campaign, or at least it's got really good trailers so far. And I'm very excited about that. I think that will do well. And Bumblebee, I am convinced is going to perform now after that last trailer. I think that will do pretty well. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. Mr. Roboto, $5 super chat. Do you count Galaxy Quest as Star Trek? Also, maybe a reboot in the future. If you're talking about a Galaxy Quest reboot, there's been a lot of talk about that. It looked like something was going to get off the ground last year, and I don't know if that's actually been moved on, and we just haven't heard anything lately, because that happens a lot. Like, you don't hear about something for 6 months, and you assume that it's not happening, but that's because they've been working on it, and there's been no reason to talk about it again. Galaxy Quest, some people are saying, like, might be redundant now because of the Orville. Isaac is the robot's name in the Orville. I've been trying to think of that this entire time. But anyway, and Bortus is a character that, like, I didn't think that I would end up really liking, and he's really growing on me. Anyway, I digress. But I don't totally agree with that. I mean, obviously, it's a really different premise. It's not just comedic Star Trek. It's a meta thing that's about a world where something like Star Trek was made, and then those actors went to space and had to play those roles. I think you can do that again. There's the talk was to do it as a series. I think that's maybe weird. I don't need that. But I wouldn't want to see it rebooted, but I don't think, although if you did a sequel now, you'd have to recast some of the characters, obviously. So anyway, I don't know about that, but no, I don't count Galaxy Quest as Star Trek. But it's in a lot of ways a good Star Trek movie, if that makes any sense. But I certainly don't count it as Star Trek. Let's answer a couple more pre-written questions. I don't think there are any more super chats at the moment. Vampire Diaries, $2 super chat. Malik, David, and Danny are all amazing artists. They really are. All three of those guys have done some wonderful work for the channel, and I want to say thanks to those guys. Mr. Roboto, $5 super chat. Did you see the trailer for the Russian superhero movie? Second, I have a story concept. I need an opinion. How and where? Okay, so the first part of that, I did not know about the Russian superhero movie, so somebody sent me a link to that. I don't know even what it's called. And you have a story concept, you need an opinion. So I'm doing a creative writing workshop right now, and if you want to write a story or something and come into the workshop course, it's just $10 a month on Patreon. And you could come in for just one class and get something workshopped, or you could come in and do it regularly and help us all live the writing life better. But just to have me look at a concept, like, you can send me something on Facebook and I'll try to respond to it. Just Geekvolution on Facebook, just send me a personal message. I don't read things outside of the workshop because I just don't have time. But if you have like a little 4 or 5 sentence blurb, like, I'll take a look at it and tell you what I think of your concept. But so many things are more about execution than they are about concept. So anyway, Mr. Roboto, I already did that one. Grady Childs, $5 super chat. Did you hear about the rumors Avengers 4 title might be Avengers Eternity? Also, thoughts on the Birds of Prey casting that came out this week. I'm a broken record with this, but like, every title that is rumored sounds like a thing that I don't know why we had to wait so long to find out what the title was. It still seems to me like the only reason you would wait that long on it would be because you had some kind of, because it was going to give away something. And again, that doesn't. So like, that's a fine title. I like it better than Avengers Forever. But I will remain very, very perplexed about why we had to wait this long to get that title, if that ends up being what it is. But I don't think it's a bad trailer. Excuse me, I don't think it's a bad title at all. Okay, let me answer another pre-written question. Sorry, I just had a couple more super chats there. Guys, let me know if I missed any super chats, but I think I got them all. I'm sorry, guys. One more just popped in. David Crabtree, $2 super chat. He says, cheap plug, Cybermex coming in 2019. Stay tuned. That's a comic book that he's working on about transforming robots like Transformers. Looks like I've only got one or two more of these. I mean, people have been posting more questions. I just haven't gotten through everything I had already written down. So sorry, guys, about all the questions you might have written down that I didn't get to. And just if you think that might be a good question for next week, just hang on to them and bring them back again. Let me answer some things. Oh, Webmaster47 says I missed his super chat. I will look at that in a second. Let me answer a couple of things that are just that I'm seeing right now that are recent. Truth Seeker 1995, will you be doing any more Bible Man videos? Yeah, we'd like to do that. Again, we just don't have as much time, Eric and I, in the week as we used to. We tend to sit down and watch like 2 or 3 movies maybe together during the week now, and we don't shoot hardly anything besides After Dark outside of the omnibus, but occasionally we'll make an exception and do a commentary. So we would like to do more of that. Webaster47 gives me a $2 super chat and says you missed my super chat, Cap. Thanks a lot for that. I am going to look at it. I'm going to go find it. I'm doing it right now. I'm doing it right now. I just don't see it right away. I wish all the super chats were collected in one area somehow, so they would be easier to find. Did you ask one? Like all the way up at the top, because I don't see it. Sorry, folks. I'm sure this is wildly entertaining. Webmaster, if I'm not seeing it, so don't do another super chat for it. Please, you don't have to do that. Just in the regular chat, just write down what the question was or what the comment was, because I'm not seeing it. It's like it never popped up. Wait a minute, there it is. Never mind, I found it. $5 super chat. Thanks a lot. I really don't agree with your issues with MJ gameplay-wise. I'm not in love with making her a reporter, but I enjoyed her segments. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of blowback about this. I'm talking about we're talking about the sections in the Spider-Man PS4 game where you jump into another character's body and you play as them for a while. As I said, it won me over on it. So by the end, I was much more appreciating that it was more of a supporting cast game, even though I initially resisted it hard because the pitch of the game is you're going to be Spider-Man and you want to feel the exhilaration of web swinging and all of that. And it felt initially like kind of busy work and just a kind of clunky way to get exposition in the game to jump in other characters' bodies. Miles especially works really well because it's not just exposition, we're also moving story forward. I still don't necessarily think that you would have to do those like as interactive sections. I don't think you'd have to. With Miles in particular, I did come to like that more, to appreciate it. But my initial issue with it, and I don't mean to be a broken record, but people keep bringing it up and asking me about it. And some of this is just taste issue, and you don't have to agree with me. This is just how I feel about it. I didn't like doing it in flashback. That was my big thing. And some people are like, "Oh man, Cap, you just have such a hard on against flashbacks all the time." Narratively, I think flashbacks are often used as a crutch. I talk about this a lot, but the issue with them in the game, and understand, they only do it, I think, twice. Like after that, it's all in the moment, and it's not a big deal. But so usually my issue with flashback is you interrupt the story to give background, and we're not in the story anymore. So stories are about a break in status quo and what happens after that, and that is a story, right? Something happens that changes things for a protagonist, and now we're seeing a character arc that they go through because of that. Anything that happens before that is not part of that story. So it might be important information, but anytime you can get it in scene somehow is better. That's not the problem with this, because it's not going back before the story began. It's going back like 15 minutes before what just happened. And my beef with it is simply that it's an interactive experience and I'm playing through a scene that already happened, and that is just weird in my brain. That's all. It's just, I mean, it's mostly a taste thing. I think it's also clunky narratively. Other folks don't have a problem with it. That's fine. That's my issue with it. I don't care for that. Yeah, the making MJ just a reporter thing, I think, is kind of strange. It seems like too much of a reinvention to me. She seems like a completely different character. Besides the fact, okay, she's proactive and a go-getter and all of that, but those are kind of really generalized character traits. Like, she's not really Mary Jane, and I feel like there are probably other avenues you could have gone to get her more involved in the story. But doing the minor spoilers, but doing the kind of backdoor origin thing for Miles, I think, is really good. And by the end of the game, I'm not sure how you would do that without me playing those sections, because I think he's inching toward being a second protagonist in the game, although kind of a minor one. And B, you'd just be sitting through really lengthy cutscenes for a long time. Folks, that is going to be it for me tonight, I think, unless there's any other super chats that I missed. Jeffrey says, $5 super chat, this is incredibly entertaining. I don't know what he is referring to, unless he left that while I was looking around for a super chat. I'm sure that's what it was. But anyway, well, folks, I sure appreciate you guys watching this evening. Thanks for being here. Hope it wasn't too dull without a co-host, without a producer. But Daniel will be back with us again. Hopefully next Wednesday night. We'll be back unless anything changes, and I'll let you know if it does at 9 o'clock. We've still been kicking around, maybe starting the show a little bit earlier. The last couple of weeks, 9 o'clock has still been better for me. So if that changes, I will let you know. And if it goes earlier, it'll just be an hour earlier. So anyway, Super Nerd says, keep up the great work, Cap. I sure appreciate that. Lots of great, interesting, and insightful questions this evening. And I think I got through quite a bit, so it was a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys. I'll see you again next week, and I look forward to more videos here on the channel through the rest of the week. I am Captain Logan, and I will see you again next time.